I have never hired anybody for performance. As a leader, you don't just extract performance, you have to expand the people. You have to let them fly.
The moment you start looking at cracking a domain, you'll start to look at who understands the domain.
And I figured that I have to hire for attitude, I have to hire for belief, and not hire for domain expertise. I have valued loyalty above all else.
Ravi Saxena co-founded Wonderchef, India's premium kitchen brand with chef Sanjeev Kapoor. In this episode, Ravi shares the playbook he used to build a leading consumer brand without raising much VC money and how he built a leadership team with no prior experience in the kitchen appliances industry.
You bootstrapped but raised money once you got to a certain revenue scale. There is this concept called one and done.
The way the company spends money, which is the most critical resource in building any business, is also dependent on your own DNA, how you think about money. I think an ESOP plan, first of all, should be honest.
Is that why most of them say, "Abhi cash de do mujhe"? I would prefer that versus ESOP.
Thank you very much for doing this. So let me start from the current wonderful Wonderchef journey. So just give us a little bit of a lay of the land in terms of talent is concerned in your industry. Typically, what is the skill set that you look for? Where are these people? What kind of educational background do they have? And what are their compensation requirements? What are their aspirations and so on? Just a little brief about the typical talent pool that's relevant for your sector or industry.
So, Satish, your question is very valid for Wonderchef, but my answer will be different from a normal answer precisely because I have built companies differently. My background itself has been a bit different of a career path from most people, and which has reflected in the kind of talent I have hired. So, the first company I built in India when I was very young was Sodexo. Right, I had joined them in France in '94, and which is more than 32 years ago now. And I convinced them that we should look at the Indian market. And I came back to India early '95. And from there on, right from market research to lobbying for the tax benefit on the meal voucher, and then launching gift voucher after that, launching the food service business, facilities management, smart cards. So 5 different businesses. And none of those businesses existed in the firm before. So, which means that by DNA, I was always hiring for belief and not for knowledge. So when I started Meal Voucher, there was no other meal voucher concept or company. What domain should I hire from? Because when I started contacting the typical recruiters of the time, the ABC and the PSS and a couple of headhunters for senior positions, they would always say, what domain do you want? I would say, what domain can you imagine? I mean, I want a salesperson, but they could come from insurance, they could come from retail, they could come from banking, they could come from FMCG. And they were very confused. And I was confused that why are they confused? Because for me, it was an obvious choice that, I just want a smart guy who's willing to bend his back or bend her back and, work the market and figure out how to sell this new thing called meal voucher. So I realized that, they will not understand. And I just said, give me some people I will interview. And I figured that I have to hire for attitude, I have to hire for belief and not hire for domain expertise. That became my DNA because we were successful. When I started catering business, now catering existed as an industry. And I interviewed, मैंने कहा चलो अब domain वाले लोग देख लेते हैं, because domain exists. But I found them to be so much lacking in energy, so much lacking in ideas. Because I didn't want to build a catering business which, was for blue collar people, like typically it used to exist for factories. I said, look, I have to target IT, BPO, these smart companies and, progressive companies and charge well, make good margin. So I went completely the opposite way. Of course, a chef has to be a chef, but I didn't hire chefs from catering companies. I hired chefs from 5-star hotels, from Taj and Oberoi. I hired finance managers from FMCG companies because I don't need finance manager of a catering company, which there were not very many good people also. I wanted somebody who can track the flow of consumables and perishables across 100 or 500 different sites across the country on a daily basis. So it was an FMCG mindset that was required. And I think it was somewhere because of people and the kind of people we hired and kind of belief we put into them that Sodexo became Sodexo. Right? When I left the company after 13 years of leading it, building it, we were about 28,000 people in the company as employees. Today, I'm happy to share that there are more than 1 lakh people employed by Sodexo in India.
Wow, this is direct employment?
Direct employment.
Wow.
More than 1 lakh, yeah. Okay. So, of course, mainly in the operational businesses of catering and facilities management. But voucher is also, now the card or the app is also a huge business. So, when I started building Wonderchef, the same belief came to me that I have to hire good people for the right attitude, because we came here to change certain things, not for the heck of change, but because I realized that the consumer wants something better, something different. And if I take just domain experts, they are going to say no to everything. Now, we took the example of how your son saw NutriBlend for the first time at the age of 7 and fell in love. Let me tell you, I took about 1.5 years to develop this product because I was convinced, thanks to my interactions with the consumers, that they need a better mixer grinder. The problem statement was that all the mixer grinders had steel jars, so you cannot see inside. The lid used to fly off when you are using it, so you have to do the pranam. You
Just
have to
hold it.
stand, hold it. Okay. And it was not compact. And that is what the customers wanted. So I developed this product, and my own team said that, look, this would not work. A couple of foreign companies have tried selling these kind of blenders. They don't work. So I said, no, we have done the right engineering. Those blenders are for soft fruits. We have done the engineering with higher power. So it can make coconut chutney. It can grind garam masala. That is what a mixer grinder requires. So we have to try it. But I realized that if I have to do different things, I need different kind of people. And when I was thinking of speaking to you, planning to speak to you today, I was wondering what would I say to you. So I did a quick scan in my mind of my management team, which reports directly to me, the management committee. It's a 22 people team, which is a part of management committee, about 11 of them reporting directly to me and some of their minus ones. And I was shocked to realize that none of them from those 22 have come from any company in our industry.
That is so cool.
Yeah. Now, Sodexo was a very different business. So I can imagine that we didn't have any domain experts. But today in our industry, there are at least 10 players.
Yeah, the comparables. Yeah.
Comparables. The Prestige is there, Hawkins is there, Bajaj is there, Philips is there, Butterfly is there, Stovecraft is there, Sujata is there. There's so many players. And normally one would say that, I have to take domain expert. But somehow our DNA is that, no. What we want is a person who believes in us, who has the right attitude, who has the right kind of hunger. Okay. And my job is not to drive them. My job is to lend belief in them, to coach them, that how it is to be done. And I have seen that with the right kind of people, we are cracking it. We are the thought leader in this industry for the last 12, 13 years. We have defined where the industry is moving to. NutriBlend is a good example. Our cookware, people were not happy with Indian cookware. The non-stick coating used to get spoiled within 6 months. We came with the right research and we gave a warranty of 2 years. And we changed that. And I needed people who convincingly can sell a product at a 30% premium because it is better. We introduced colors, and you would know that Wonderchef introduced colors in the kitchen. It used to be black and boring, right? And it's been, we spoke about chai magic. It's our worldwide patent. It's my thought behind this product, that how to make chai perfect without becoming a slave to the tea कि 10 मिनट अब तो खड़े होके उसको देखना है उबल ना जाए, and the moment you look the other side the tea boils over.
Correct. You'll always get the timing wrong.
Exactly. So that's what we have cracked. Perfect tea every time, does not boil over, and even if you're not around, you just press a button, disappear. After 10 minutes you come, tea is ready and it's kept warm at the right temperature. So we have the kitchen robot, which is a robotic kitchen appliance. Even if you don't know how to cook, you can cook perfectly. So there are so many firsts to our name, precisely because whether it is my designers, whether it was my engineers, whether it is my product developers or my salespeople or my marketing people, none of them comes from this industry, and it's not by choice, it's by belief that we will take the best talent which is out there who can make things happen rather than who knows how things are done.
You're kind of being very humble about how this worked, but I'm sure it wouldn't have happened. Just getting these kind of people in wouldn't have happened, right? And so I'm assuming you had your style of mentoring or your style of working with them, whether you call it training, mentoring, or whatever there. So is there any learnings, anything that you would want to share for a young founder to follow and saying, okay, because one of the things that you rightly said is moment you start looking at cracking a domain, you'll start to look at, who understands the domain, right? Now, it's though statistics and history tells us that large scale elevation have happened from people outside of the domain, but we do still need some domain expertise, especially if you're moving into something like really, really new. Now, in your case, you moved from something like Sodexo, which is a B2B application, into consumer and kitchen goods and so on. But in terms of how would you, how you mentored them, how you trained them, are there any principles that worked for you which could probably be copied into other industries and sectors?
I think I can write a book on that, but if I were to pick up one or two things, first of all, I believe the founder's energy becomes the company's energy, it becomes the company's culture.
Correct.
And teams do not listen to founders as much as they absorb them. Like we say for the kids, they don't preach them and not practice your preaching. They will pick up what you practice in your daily life. We say it for kids. I have seen that even the senior most employee comes into your domain, into your company as a kid. A person even earning a crore or 2 crores, a VP, or a person fresh out of college, they both are kids when they come into a new company. They are trying to align. They are trying to understand the culture. They're trying to make friends. They are trying to see the boss, that what he likes, what he does not like. And the love for building, which a founder carries, which I carried all throughout, whether I was an entrepreneur in Sodexo or in Landmark Group, or I became an entrepreneur with Wonderchef, I had this love for building. I had the love for design and innovation. Even when we used to print the coupon for Sodexo, I would spend days with the ad agency just designing that paper coupon, because that is my brand going into everybody's hands.
Right.
The sticker that used to be, and of course with Wonderchef, there's so much more to design. The willingness to reinvent every day. So every Tuesday, we have a management committee meeting for last 30 years. Okay. Now, this is another thing which is discipline, which I can talk about separately. But every Tuesday, we have a management committee meeting. If I am in US, I am in Canada, I'll wake up at night and attend that meeting by Google Meet, a 2-hour meeting. And in that, I asked the team today to look at data, sales data in a certain manner. And I was telling my CFO that, look, even after 15 years of building Wonderchef, it's the first time that I have thought of looking at data in this manner and making the team work on that. So basically, you have to reinvent every week, every day. And the optimism that you may have in difficult phases, I think that is most important, whether it was the pandemic, whether it was the wars, whether it is today the oil crisis, the consumer sentiment is down, but we are growing, and we have always grown, and I can be proud of the teams for that. Because, that culture, a very amorphous thing, you can't touch it. It's not written in HR manuals. But culture is what leadership repeatedly celebrates. Clapping on every victory, what we tolerate and what we reject as leaders, that becomes culture. So it is the company's founder who is responsible. You can hire HR experts, you can hire anybody. They will do 2-3 day program, everything else will be forgotten.
Absolutely.
So that is, I think, the most important thing. And then when it comes to managing people, I think my belief has been, and you said, give some, let's say, nuggets for young founders to listen to. So I think the nugget that I can give is that for me, building talent has always been giving people an opportunity to become a bigger version of themselves. I always say that all I do in the company is allow them to spread their wings and fly. And for that, what is very critical is that there should be no politics in the organization.
Fabulous. Yeah.
Politics is not BJP, Congress within an organization. Politics is typically when one person is trying to curb the talent, the potential of somebody else, especially their junior, in the fear that the junior will outshine me.
Correct.
And I am dead against that. And as you can see, Satish, my path, I left a job with Citibank to join this unknown company called Sodexo, jumped into the unknown. In 94, when Citibank was the mecca of banking and finance world. You know why? Not because I believe that Sodexo is a better company. It was never. Okay? So Citibank is a far superior place to work and whatever you may say, or a more sexy name to work at. I realized that I can spread my wings in a company which I am guiding, driving. If it is not successful tomorrow, it's my loss. I will start at the bottom again. I'm willing to take that risk. But if I can make it work, I can build something out of it.
Fantastic.
So I left that because I could feel that in Citibank there's so much talent. I will not be able to spread my wings. You may call it politics by peers, politics by boss, subordinates, whatever. And the single biggest reason for success of Sodexo and Wonderchef is that I systematically fight politics. If I see somebody curbing talent, even in a branch level, and these are weak signals. I am not present everywhere.
Correct.
I'm not traveling like crazy. These are weak signals. When you meet somebody, when you say hello to somebody, are they looking you in the eye? And there can be many reasons for that. There can be integrity issue where they're not looking at the eye. And as a leader, you have to be able to differentiate whether it's because of that issue or because the person is feeling curbed somewhere. And all I need to say is, how can we do better? And people never crib against their boss, right? There's an army discipline. But you have to be able to perceive. And I think that is what differentiates a good leader from an ordinary leader, the feeling of the people. Because alone you can't do much. You can define some product, you can define some strategy. Every day it has to be executed by thousands of people in the ground. So I think that is very important, that as a leader, you don't just extract performance. You have to expand the people. You have to let them fly. So I can go on and on, but I think you have gotten the two most important things about leadership and growing talent.
No, that's it's amazing, how you articulated in these many words in terms of looking at somebody in the eye and being able to differentiate. I think there's a skill probably everybody would learn over a period of time. You also mentioned about these 11 people who directly report to you, right? So the ones who report to you in terms of their own growth, do you do anything special for them? Were these people who grew in the organization? Were they lateral hires? So what would you look at in terms of people who directly report into you? What kind of, because we always say this, right? Usually the founder obviously sets the culture, but like you rightly pointed out, the founder is not everywhere, especially if it's a diversified organization in multiple cities and so on. So it is the middle management that takes the culture forward. Who will probably be your direct reports as such, right? So these 11 people or anybody who directly report to you, is there anything that you did in terms of building their own leadership skills, making sure they carry what you have as a principle into individual everyday actions? Is there anything that as a process people can follow?
So, first of all, I've been fortunate that people have stayed with me for a long time. In Sodexo, we were proud of our team. The team initially which came together, and we, as we say, we all came on different ships, but we're in the same boat now, you know. And when we wrote that boat, we were so proud of it. And sometimes I used to sit back and laugh. And we are selling this paper, and we are selling it with so much excitement, you know, with more excitement than a life insurance person sells life coverage, or a computer, an Apple salesperson sells Apple. You know, how is that possible? Or a Coca-Cola manager, the iconic brand, sells Coca-Cola.
Right.
But it's just that we were doing that, and I think that energy kept people together. They could have gotten better jobs in faster growing industries as the industries came about. But I think it was that energy, that celebration, and it does not mean all was la la land. I've been a tough boss, very target driven. Otherwise, you can't build new things. You know, you can't grow. You will always remain small and going around your happy life. But I've seen that people never run away because you're demanding performance, or even you are angry with them when performance is not there. They leave when energy is not there. They leave when vision is not there. They leave when belief is lost. So my job always was, even in the toughest of times, to create belief and to create the new challenge, you know, and in short steps. And I think that is what people learn with me. And that is how they manage their people. So if there is a retail head, I am not interacting with their zonal managers or area sales managers or sales officers directly. I may meet them once in a few months, but they also learn to manage the same way. You know, in a particular month, if a particular zonal performance is down, they will know how to motivate them to look at the larger picture and ensure that next month they will cover up. So I think with observation, with belief, I have never fired anybody for performance.
Wow.
I've always, and I've fired people in my life. I've built teams with thousands and thousands of people. I've fired when they do not follow the process. Because I always say that performance you cannot extract by putting the gun on the head of the client. But if the process is there, that you have to meet 3 companies on an average every day, let's say in a B2B sales process, or you have to meet 10 dealers, and then you have to put the data. I'm obsessive about data. Because if you're not putting data, then it's dishonest. Because if you're meeting and either you don't have the discipline or you're lying, then you get fired. Because that is in your control. But something which is uncontrollable, you are doing everything, business is not coming, we will groom you, we will train you. So what have we done for our 11 people? I think first I've been able to retain a lot of them, thankfully, because of all this energy, all this belief, and the growth of the organization. Actually, they've grown with us. I remember people who have been with me for 10, 12 years, the salary they joined at, and today it's at least 10x. So salary, of course, has been taken care of, and still it's not the best in the industry or in the what they could deserve. The second thing is we have invested in their training. So every time we do interesting training programs, not the typical, as I said, 2-3 day training, but it's more detailed, at times with the psychiatrists, you know, wherever we could feel that, you know, some psychiatrist intervention is required, and they were blown away because it just opened up new ideas. Sometimes it's standard facilitation or coaching. So, we've done all that. And as the organization grew, as we began to work on our potential listing, we have also structured a good ESOP program, because the people who have built the team, absolutely they deserve to share and have a share in the success of they need to have a Hissa in the success
Correct.
of the company. Okay. And so, yes, absolutely, we have done that. And it's a structured program.
So what I was looking at, I mean, when I was looking at Wonderchef, and typically, so I'm from the venture world, right? So we are used to seeing companies who usually come with 2 or 3 co-founders, raise some VC money very quickly, use that money to build the company, and then slowly grow, and so on and so forth. It's one playbook, which is pretty common, and almost every industry has got some examples of that, right? So if I were to look at somebody like an Atomberg, a Bombay Shaving Company, or a Mokobara, some of these people who are in consumer goods category as such, and especially the ones that have come out new, have followed the more traditional tech company playbook. And in your case, you bootstrapped but raised money once you got to a certain revenue scale. In fact, there is a there's an interesting name for it now. I mean, you did this several years ago, but in the last few years, especially in Silicon Valley, there is this concept called one and done. So you basically bootstrap the company, get to some point where you show some revenues and unit economics, then you raise one round and then don't raise until you go public. So you don't have this janjat of continually running on VC money, working on metrics that are maybe not really important from um, financial health of the company in the near term, but you are just running and spending and so on. So for you, when you did this, was this like a conscious decision that I'm going to do it this way? Was there anything that drove these principles in where you said, okay, I'm going to bootstrap this until some point, and then we'll see if we need external capital?
Satish, beautiful question. Would love to speak about it. And I think it's very important for the founders to understand.
Exactly.
First of all, the business that you built is built around your own DNA, right? As I said, the founder's energy becomes the company's culture. Similarly, the way the company spends money, which is the most critical resource in building any business, is also dependent on your own DNA, how you think about money. Everyone loves to say, I have middle class values. Question is, do you follow them in life or not? Because the moment you get some VC money, you forget those middle class values. Not only that, we all know founders whose companies are still making losses, but they've raised 2-3 rounds, Series A, Series B also, and they have had some exits, and they have become glamorous investors in other companies, okay, and teaching them the wrong skill set also. And then they also disappear, and those companies also disappear. Now, I owe my style of doing business certainly to my middle class values, which billions of people in India share, okay, or millions of people in India share. So there's no big deal about it. I think I owe my style of spending money, investing money, the ROI thought process to Sodexo, because it was a multinational but in a very humble business. Khana banane ka kaam tha, right? Essentially, it's a catering company, which is a low margin business. And I always appreciated, even before I built the catering business, that this company works at a PAT level of 2 to 2.5% globally. But it always makes that. And this comes from more than 100,000 kitchens that we are managing globally. This comes from a business where 60% of the costs are variable, because you're not paying rental when you're managing somebody else's kitchen. You have your labor cost, and it's not even your own capex. So it's on your labor and your perishables, ingredients. Labor is typically about 30% and ingredients are about 60%. 10% operating margin you make, which pays for your corporate costs. At the end of the day, you are left with about 3% EBIT or 2% PAT. In a business where you're working with 60% variable cost on a daily basis, and commodity prices go up and down, everything, how is this company managing? Why doesn't it go -2 on some years? And that discipline, first of all, I brought in the voucher business also, which was a slightly more cavalier business. We could afford to spend more, but no. So I'm happy to share with you that whole of Sodexo, all 5 businesses, until the time I was there, it was all in one company. And after I left, then they divided into 2-3 other companies. The whole business with a team of 28,000 people, 2,000 crore turnover, I built with $5 million investment in Toto, which at that time amounted to 19 crore rupees, because the average price of the dollar was 45 rupees. Start from 30, went out to about 55 in my tenure. So 45 rupees. 19 crore में पूरा Sodexo बन गया था. Okay. I am told now after that Sodexo has spent probably about 2,000 crores in India in different let's say, initiatives or acquisitions which have worked, not worked, I don't know. But the point is that that is my way. And I am eternally grateful to the company for giving me that culture which I absorbed. Same with Wonderchef. I said, look, if it has to work, it has to work with my own money first. And I didn't have too much because, even if I was CEO, in those days, first we had to buy our house. Right? In our generation, we had to first buy our house and then think of something else. And have a car for the family. This is basic. My wife said, at the age of 40, you are becoming an entrepreneur. Just promise me one thing, that you will not mortgage the house that we live in. Everything else is your money. You do whatever. Okay. So I had, less than 2 crore rupees with which I started building. And Chef Kapoor, of course, came in as a co-founder thanks to lending his brand. And when I started the initiative, a couple of my foreign friends who had seen me build Sodexo, my colleagues in Sodexo, they said, look, Ravi, you are doing something. We believe in your entrepreneurial ability. So we would like to put in some money. But it was not like a VC, crores or crores, some money, but I got support, You said a very important thing, unit economics. It is considered to be the holy grail, but for me, that is the price of entry. If you don't have the right unit economics, you will never get it. Okay? You can pay for your fixed costs, but if you cannot pay for your product cost and the variable cost, your contribution is not positive. And, there's no way it will become profitable. And then you have sexy words like, we pivoted and we did this and did that and, learned at somebody else's cost and finally made some money. We hear of the success stories. We hear of a company getting funded. Being a VC yourself, that you agree to fund one out of probably 100 or more companies. My number is about 400. You meet 300 to 400 companies and you agree to invest in one. Because in your life, a typical VC, I don't know your model for ESOPs, but a typical PE fund, let's say, $200, $300 million fund, they will invest in about 8 to 10 companies in their lifetime. They're meeting companies every day and so on and so forth. So it's very rare that a company gets funding. And then after getting funding, many companies die down, especially startups, right? So I think the important thing, at least my style of building, and this is what I say to the founders, and if I invest in a company or I advise some company, my aim is to make sure that they survive. I think the first priority is survival, which means you're doing something right. So don't try to be a Flipkart or an Atombug overnight, A lot of times it's being at the right place at the right time. Okay. And of course, these parts of the founders and some technologies and everything. But a lot depends on the right timing. And I have numerous examples to give for that. And you can't time it right because you don't know. It's only in hindsight you figure out that the timing was right. So the best thing you can do is have the right product market fit, have the right intent every single day, have the right improvement, Kanban or whatever we may call it, the Japanese system of improvement every single day, and keep refining, keep the rigor, and make sure that you have positive unit economics from day one. Otherwise, don't be in that business. It's a wrong business to be in. So my philosophy was frugality. And secondly, Satish, I never wanted to put the company and my people at risk. That I have to go and beg someone for money for survival. I have gone out and raised money for growth. And when we got it, we grew. But for survival, never. Thankfully, that day never came.
See, one of the positive things we see of VC money, obviously, is somebody is supercharging your growth, right? Now, unfortunately, you grow before your unit economics and other things are set. You will eventually end up in trouble. But like I said, one of the positive things that we kind of observe everywhere is hiring becomes easier because you now have obviously this little bit of a brand of that company is being funded. Number two, you have possibly ESOPs where you can say, okay, I can, because almost every VC insists on having some sort of an ESOP because the team is pretty critical. And so now, how do you see that? Do you see an alternate where there's VC money and these are ESOP structures and some things may not be available in a bootstrap thing? It's left to the founder's own imagination in terms of how innovative you can get on compensation. Though, I mean, like you said earlier before, you may not be the best paying thing, but you have to be competitive and each person will figure their way out in terms of what that means, right? So in terms of that, do you have any advice in terms of how could compensation be structured if you're not VC funded?
Sure. No, I think, look, also my journey was a bit different, I must admit. I think VC money, without VC money, the number of startups would be much lesser. Okay. Not that every startup gets funded, but at least because there is hope for VC money, people are willing to jump in. If there is no money available, they would not even jump in, So I think it has its place right at the top when it comes to entrepreneurship. In my case, I could afford not to raise VC money in the beginning because of my profile. I started at the age of 40. I had a very successful stint before, and I knew that I'll be able to hire talent through my own profile rather than, because many times when a young person, they may be IIT, IIM, but when they're trying to hire talent, and typically the talent will be elder to them because this person would have started a entrepreneurship at the age of somewhere around 25 to 30. And you want a branch manager also, you want somebody slightly wet behind the, not so wet behind the ears, you with some gray hair, and you want an e-commerce head or something, whatever, or a designer. They may be in the 30s or even early 40s. So I totally agree with you. I could afford to do that because I could attract talent, retain them. I had the management and leadership skill set by then almost well developed, and while one continues to learn, of course, every day. So, but I would not advise that to everybody, and everybody cannot afford to do that. So I think VC money has its own very, very important place. And also, as you said, that VCs also insist, rightly so, that the ESOP plan has to be structured. I mean, we structured our ESOP plan almost 10 years after having started the company. And till that time, it's not that I kept losing talent because in fact, we kept hiring and we kept growing in more directions. But yes, for a typical startup where the founders are very young, I think it's very important to retain talent and to structure the right ESOPs for the talent that they're getting in. And also, in all fairness, sometimes that talent has even a bigger role in building that company. While the intention may have been the young persons, the talent is the one who is really, because I'm a great believer in execution. I think I am typical believer in 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration or execution. And execution comes with people who are willing to bend their back and, work it out every single day.
So in terms of ESOP, again, what would your advice be? How would people look at structuring this? Are there any ground rules you would want people to follow? Any principles to go by?
ESOP, it's funny, Satish. I have found that there are two kinds of people. There are people who want ESOPs or believe in ESOPs, and there are people who don't believe in ESOPs.
Right.
Okay. And I do not judge them by that. Both can be equally good or equally bad talents. But you would have heard, or you would have heard your clients say this very often. नहीं सर ये ESOP मत दो, मेरे को salary better कर दो.
Correct. It's a everyday fight.
So, and you are saying as a founder that I am giving you a piece of my liver, and sharing that with you. And then the person does not respect that, and you wonder whether the person is in there for the long term also or not, But there are various mindsets, and that's the beauty of people. They are different. Their motivations are different, their fears are different, their beliefs are different. Sometimes a person who has said that, no, I don't believe in ESOPs, please give me a better fixed salary. And let's say you have ended up doing that. They may stay much longer than a person whom you have given ESOPs, and they have, and then they might walk out without that pot of gold just because they found a slightly better job. So it happens all the time and everything. So I don't think there is a standard formula. I think the basic belief is that, yes, I am, as a founder, willing to share wealth. Now, whether you believe in that wealth or not is your call. Having said that, I think an ESOP plan, first of all, should be honest. Okay. It should be very honest. It should be rewarding at the right time against very specific performance criteria. I do not believe in ESOPs which are there just because you are there in the company. Okay. Never. I always have the ESOP plan that, okay, this is your right, but we will decide at the end of the year very transparently, this is the company's target, this is your target. It is never just sales target, it is sales, profit, working capital for everybody, even if you're in marketing, because even marketing impacts working capital, even finance impacts, even HR impacts. So everyone should be aligned to these three very basic points: sales, EBITDA or profitability, and working capital requirement. And we will judge you, and then your sales targets are your sales targets, somebody else's maybe somebody else's. And based on that, we will decide how much will be granted. So very transparent system, very honest system, and believable system. Second thing is that the ESOP pool should be a substantial portion actually of the salary that the person is getting. So it's different for everybody. If a person is, let's say, at a 40 lakh level, it's a different amount than if a person is at a 1 crore level, for example. So accordingly, their pot of gold at the end of the rainbow should also become larger or smaller in the same way. So just a couple of guideline factors, and I think it should not be over complex that it confuses people and reduces the believability.
Yeah, so that's the point I was trying to get to. So you said some people want to optimize for cash rather than ESOP, right? How much do you think is about belief versus knowledge about how this works? Because one thing we obviously see, if you see the last 5 years, we continuously keep hearing that there are more individuals and especially youngsters who are getting into public markets. You see the number of accounts being opened on Zerodha, Grow. So this knowledge about shares and buying and selling and equity as an asset class is kind of growing. But when it comes to ESOP, like you said, there is some sort of, what we have seen is one is belief. I don't think it's as much about belief, because if you don't believe that the company would grow, what are you doing in the company, right? But have you seen anything where if ABC is done, you'll be able to better explain what ESOPs mean to employees? Or do you see a gap in how ESOPs understand, or how employees understand and perceive ESOPs? And is that why most of them say, abhi cash de do mujhe, I would prefer that versus ESOP?
Not at all. Not at all, Satish. Because if you are not being able to explain the ESOP to an employee, then I think it's a very basic mistake. If you're a founder of a company which is funded and which is willing to give ESOPs, which means either you have created that wealth or there is a VC or PE behind you. If you are not able to explain, then you will ask your VC or PE partner. There's no VC or PE who is not able to explain that. And if you are not able to communicate that to a potential hiree or your existing employee, I think it's a very basic mistake. It's like me not being able to explain how my chai maker or coffee machine works, So it is not more complex than that. It's quite simple. In simple words, okay, when the company is listed, we'll give you so many shares. When the company is listed, potential price is this. You will get, let's say, 5 crores worth of money. I mean, how difficult is that? I think it's more to do with the believability in the company itself. Okay. Now, you are asking me that if you don't believe, then what are you doing there in the very first place? Look, people join because of various reasons. If I'm interviewing somebody for a, let's say, general manager accounts position, okay, reporting to the CFO, or a zonal manager reporting to the All India retail head. Now, these two positions also will get ESOPs in our company. Okay. The question is, first of all, the person will say, if I can negotiate it for, bird in hand today, rather than 3 in the bush tomorrow, I will do that. Some people are smart enough to understand कि आज तो negotiate कर लेता हूँ, जितना maximum fixed होता है, उसके बाद तो नीचे जाता नहीं है fixed. Tomorrow, they will anyway include me in the ESOP pool. Well, I have seen very smart people, right? Especially sales people. The better the salesperson, the smarter he is in chipcowing you, right? and I like that also. So the third thing is that they need a job. You need a person. And let me tell you, that is where the most of the hiring happens. Okay. Now, and as I said, I have hired thousands of people, okay, either directly or through my teams. So people join for all kinds of reasons. And every time you cannot afford to wait for the right kind of talent who will come, who will believe in your company. How do you even test that? So sometimes people are coming, you need a position to be filled. You know, maybe in 2, 3 years, 5 years, the person will anyway leave and churn and for the next big assignment till you need to fill that position because your distributors are lying unattended, your market is not being serviced. You may take that person. And if he doesn't believe in the ESOP because he thinks अब Wonderchef जाके पता नहीं कब list होगा और क्या होने वाला है, तो so be it.
Then that's very good advice. So two different, and very practical advice,
Yeah, an easier thing to understand, Satish, in comparison is the variable pay. Because variable pay almost every company has, whether you have ESOPs or not, right? And there are people all the time, even at the most senior positions, who will say, नहीं सब variable मेरा कम कर दो, fix थोड़ा ज़्यादा कर दो.
Yeah, that's a very good observation. And if you kind of extrapolate that to this, it all starts to make sense. So just kind of jumping to one other thing that I had noticed from Wonderchef was you had mentioned before this distributor network of about 8,500 women who was managed one pillar of your distribution. Tell us a little more about that. I mean, what was the idea behind this model? And obviously, individual. We are a country of small businesses. Almost every house has an entrepreneur in some, in some form. Are there any good stories of any of these 8,500 people becoming larger entrepreneurs themselves, where this served as what you did served as a starting point for them in their own entrepreneurial journey? However big or small it is, it doesn't really matter. But something that could kickstart, especially for women, entrepreneurship as such.
So first of all, why we started that model in the very first place. So in fact, to put the right words, that is what we started Wonderchef with. That was my first distribution channel.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, because look, when I launched the company with better quality products, premium products, so they were naturally higher priced. And when I went to general trade, which is the typical distribution network in India, I thought इतनी बढ़िया product बनाई है तो मतलब NutriBlend बनाया है तो चलना ही चाहिए भाई. And they just threw it in my face. That was the first reality check. They said ये नहीं चलेगा, लेके जाओ. अरे भाई इतना बढ़िया है, देखो अब चल. हाँ वो सब ठीक है, but 100 करोड़ का एडवर्टाइजिंग डालोगे पीछे क्या? भाई हम तो 1 करोड़ से कंपनी चालू कर रहे हैं, क्या 100 करोड़ का क्या? कस्टमर कैसे आएगा फिर पूछने के लिए? And that was an eye opener. That in general trade, typical mindset of the dealer, and rightly so, is that unless somebody is coming and asking for the product, why should it sell? And now, of course, you have more shops which are, experiential in nature. So there you can keep. But even there, if you keep a product which is not known, why would it sell? So I thought to myself, look, I don't have the muscle to invest in inventory and also do so much marketing. There is no way. And why not start with this? Now, I had observed a company in US called the Pampered Chef, which had been bought by Warren Buffett. And I thought Buffett is a smart man. He still is. If he has bought a company, then the model must be good. So I went to US, attended a couple of home shows at friends' places of these companies, and it was very nice. It was a very nice atmosphere and something that I like, creating energy, sharing beliefs. So these couple of ladies will come to your home. They will insist that you call your friends and family. There will be about 10 of us, and they will have a nice party, and we'll all be very happy at the end of the day, and people will end up buying. I said, chalo ye acha kaam hai. And they are able to explain the intricacies of products. So I can tell you, we developed the first non-stick pan, which I believed is very good, and we gave a 2 years guarantee on that, whereas the other companies were giving only 6 months warranty on their coating. I was running from Chennai to Chandigarh, selling that pan and breaking the egg on that and showing that how without a drop of oil also egg will not stick. And every time we will do this gathering with 4 or 5 potential women, maybe one of them will join the network. To date, about 87,000 women have joined our network. And people ask me कहाँ से मिलता है network, क्या होता है? I said एक एक करके बनता है. It's one by one. You have to build the hard way. And now, of course, the team does it. So I loved that because, one, they demonstrated our products, they demonstrated differentiation, and I think they built the brand, frankly. Because when then the brand came in modern trade, when it came in general trade, when it came in e-commerce, people had somewhere experienced that show. There was a talking point. Number two, the stories of these women were amazing. Because why somebody would come and join us in this endeavor? We are not paying even 500 rupees guaranteed in the month. Okay, it's only commission basis. We never forced them to buy our products. We said we will have distributors. अगर कोई कस्टमर आपको मिलता है तो आप डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर से लेकर उसको दे देना. So we appointed local distributors. But still, why would they come? It's hard work, It's commitment. There is some expense of ingredients and all every time you invite somebody. So we have interviewed hundreds of women and we asked them to come on stage and speak to the people. I think the most important reason why these ladies came up is that they wanted a sense of independence on their own, even if the husband is rich. Typically, in small towns, it's joint family. They said, I don't want to ask my mother-in-law or my husband for a kitty party that I want to attend. Okay. This is one profile of customer thinking about a kitty party. There's another profile of a ladypreneur, as we call them, who says, Mera barat to daru pita hai. And this is a malaise in most of the financial challenge classes, as you know. जो ये महीने का 2000 रुपये मैं इससे कमा लेती हूँ ना, उससे मेरे बच्चे का दूध गारंटी हो जाता है. The kid I can give them milk because milk is otherwise a premium thing for such classes. At least I can give some milk to my very, very little. Thirdly, they said it gives me a sense of community. Because, in our system, ladies are demonstrating to ladies. So it's a very safe kind of a network that they build. And they build their support system. And there are ladies who have come and cried on the stage and they've been hugged because, it's so emotional for them that they felt independence. Now, have they grown? Absolutely. Because a lot of such ladies themselves have become distributors, first of all.
I was going to ask that. So that's a measure of super success.
Yeah, because in the beginning we had some, let's say in Delhi we will have one. In Mizoram we will have one. And today in Mizoram we have 5 distributors. And all these have come from the ladies who were successful with us, and they fell in love with the products. So we have hundreds of such distributors. The next level is that they have opened up outlets of Wonderchef. So we have about 65 such outlets which have been opened by these ladies, exclusive Wonderchef outlets, like our franchise outlets, and we support them.
Yeah, I don't know. I think this is a story where you can see entrepreneurship growing at various level and through different kind of instruments in some sense, right? I'll come back to another thing that I kind of heard you say about your manufacturing setups. And again, where all your products got made, and especially in India. And these were also, you had different kind of entrepreneurs who are operating these factories, right? So kind of explain that model there. I mean, did you see that as, again, as a mechanism by which some other motivated entrepreneur can go manage this and build their own business and grow from there, and thereby kind of relieving some operational responsibilities on the factory side? Or was there any other reason for building something of this kind? Because most likely, especially in your area, where in your vision of having a high quality product, a lot of people would want to control manufacturing, right? Because the moment I do contract manufacturing and I give it out, I lose control over the quality, and that comes with other issues and so on. But in your case, I see kind of a hybrid model where you were in the factory, but you had some other operator or an entrepreneur managing the factory. Just tell me the thinking about on that.
So First of all, it's a misnomer that outsourcing reduces quality.
Okay.
You can have poor quality in your own factory also. And I want to say that Apple does not make a single phone itself. It's all outsourced. NVIDIA does not manufacture a single or fabricate single chip themselves. It's all outsourced. So it all, and we know that there's no higher quality GPU than NVIDIA or more higher quality phone or instrument in the world than Apple, right? So I think it depends on how you control the quality, set up the processes, ensure that all your raw material, ingredients, quality testing, everything is followed. Now, why we did it? I think there are some reasons and again some lessons for the founders. First of all, I wanted to use whatever meager capital I had at any stage of life. Even when we got funded, capital was meager only because we didn't raise hundreds of millions of dollars. We raised small amount of money. And manufacturing setup can suck in a lot of money. So, and some unproductive assets can suck in money. So people get very fond of buying land and they start giving, यहाँ पे फैक्ट्री बनाऊंगा, यहाँ पे मैं गार्डनिंग करूंगा, यहाँ पे मैं बच्चों का क्रैश बनाऊंगा, and before you know, money is over and then they're begging and they're mortgaging their land and so on. So I had seen all this tamasha in my life. So I said, no, I don't have to do that. So we always work with people who already had their land and building. Okay. Second thing is, so one is capex. Second is managing the local challenges. I don't need to define the kind of local challenges that you face in manufacturing. Okay. Starting from union to officials and for everything, right?
Absolutely.
Satish, we have become the fastest growing brand in our industry. Okay. To breach the barrier, the mental barrier of 500 crores. Brands have taken decades and some have never reached this. We've reached this in 10 years. And that was because our focus stayed on design, contract manufacturing, branding, and distribution. If I were to open a large factory, I would be sitting there and feeling very good about, shaving off a couple of basics points on my cost rather than branding. I think that is very important, branding and distribution. Number 3, so it's focus. So first is capex, second is focus. Third is skill set. Because for making anything, there is a tribal knowledge. So when I wanted to manufacture NutriBlend, I didn't ask a factory or an entrepreneur to set up injection molding machines and, start doing everything alone. I went to the best injection molding or one of the best injection molder in the country was already making some other consumer goods. Okay? They were making ACs or fans or whatever, not competing with us. Because I didn't want to go to a mixer grinder manufacturer and give him that technology. Okay. So we found such people, 2 such factories who were very good at their job. They already had 40, 50 high quality injection molding machines, CNC machines, finishing machines, everything. They had the assembly line. And I said, I can give you so much guaranteed business and we will grow together. Okay. And this partnership has worked for last 7 years and will continue to work in the future.
So this is true. This is true contract manufacturing in some sense, or you had some equity, some stake in these factories?
In this case, because injection molding machines is a big investment, I wanted to, and a skill set. So I wanted to go to them.
Third party, okay.
There are a couple of cookware factories, which is also a very important category for us, where we have taken stake and supported them in putting that machinery, which Indian manufacturers were afraid to put.
Okay.
Okay. So for example, an injection molding machine, if you want to take out this big piece of plastic, you need that, right? But in case of cookware, when it is coated, people were using pizza ovens, 7 feet. Okay. And the standard is that if you want this non-stick coating to stick properly, you have to bake it at 410 degrees centigrade for 45 minutes continuously. So which means the oven for that is 120 feet long. in India, people were using these handheld guns to spray the paint. Our standard is robotic. Okay. So these kind of things, we said, okay, we will co-invest in them. We will get that machinery, and we will give you the toolings, which we invest in our own molds. So it was co-investment in that sense. Okay. And it's again, it's exclusivity. They can't supply to anybody else. It's our machines, it's our tooling. So I would not say that we have taken an equity in their companies so that we can sell tomorrow or acquire them tomorrow. No, we have co-invested, because sometimes investment is without equity also, because you are manufacturing for us for next 10 years, you will manufacture for us, and then this machine will stand appreciated, right? That way. So I think we have a way. So I said capex, I said talent or ability to manage the local stuff. And the third thing, the tribal knowledge. And the other very important thing is flexibility. Because sometimes you set up a large factory, you can manufacture 2, 3, 4 kinds of things. I operate in 12 different categories. I have 500 SKUs. So I have seen people get stuck with one technology and they are not able to evolve. And we are a very evolutionary company, So thanks to all this, I think we are growing well.
Fantastic. My final topic is quick commerce. Now, last 2.5, 3 years, quick commerce has become a very large distribution channel, right? And one of the things that you mentioned earlier about what kind of founders are starting these companies, a lot of them are young founders, and this is a industry where probably they don't understand much, and so they are able to do some things that which somebody would have normally thought that this is not possible. But what we kind of hear is there is a lot of talent that is moving from traditional D2C brands, especially category managers, product managers, into these quick commerce companies, because that's now one, like we talked about, they are venture funded and probably their pay is different. I don't know what the nature of the work in those spaces would be compared to a product builder as such, but we do hear that the talent is moving. Is that like a right framing of that? Do you see people moving from traditional consumer companies into quick commerce as brand managers, not brand managers, actually category managers, and people, especially those who figure distribution, getting in there? Is that something that's like a trend, or this is a one-off thing that we're seeing now?
You see, quick commerce, there are 4 large players, right? I think most of the talent they have drawn from is the e-commerce companies, Amazon, Flipkart.
That's on the tech side, right? Even on the distribution side, the same people are coming in?
Even on the category management side, yeah. Because job is the same, you see. So a category manager's job, it's very different from brand manager's job. Because the brand manager is looking at his own brand, marketing, distribution, etc. Whereas a category manager sitting in a Flipkart or Amazon was in touch with 100 brands and 1,000 manufacturers and figuring out, right? And they were used to looking at data in a certain way. And if you see the engines, the tech engines of quick commerce companies, the marketing engines of quick commerce companies,
pretty similar. Yeah.
Similar, because that was the best way to learn. So you also want somebody in your team who is able to look at data in that same fashion and does not have a steep learning curve, So a lot of people have come from the e-commerce companies. I think they've been impacted to an extent, but they were fairly scaled up, so I don't think it has really hollowed them out. Then, of course, some talent has come from FMCG companies, durables companies, category managers, brand managers. But I put the whole thing in context by saying there are only 4 companies. And there are hundreds of consumer companies, right? So even if a company loses 1 or 2 people to this, it does not shake them up. It's a natural churn, which would have happened anyway. So just to put things in context, it's not a shattering thing. But having said that, quick commerce, I think what it is shattering is the way people get serviced. I think that's incredible. I think that is an amazing job they have executed. I could not have imagined. When I first met the Zeppo founders, I couldn't believe that they could pull it off. And they have changed the industry because Zeppo was the first. Then they did not believe that durables should be sold there. And I kept meeting them. Their office was right behind our office in Mumbai earlier. They have moved to Bangalore. And I kept saying that, why don't you introduce my NutriBlend at least? They were laughing, saying, sir, quick commerce means quick. FMCG, fast moving. I said, no, listen, let me show you, just be patient. Let me show you a simple Excel sheet, 10 lines. Okay. I said, your highest moving, I have researched, your highest moving is 1 kilo of onion or potato. And the highest moving packaged good is, let's say, Haldiram Bhujia. So let's see the unit economics of that. And it's negative. Yeah. But when we grown, I said, no. How would unit economics get fixed? Because your cost of delivery is not going to come down. It's going to go up. Your margin cannot go down. You cannot increase the price. In fact, you are used to discounting that and it will never change. You will always try to sell them the neighborhood retailer. But now look at my NutriBlend. 2,500 rupees. I give you 20%, 500 rupees. So much shelf space. What is your rental? So I calculated everything. So many deliveries per boy, this delivery cost. At the end of the day, you make 220 rupees profit on every NutriBlend sold, even if you sell one every week. And that made them sit up. I'm happy to share that we are on an ARR of over 100 crores in quick commerce alone. Yeah. And we are able to service the customer so much better. Because there are certain things that people seek out. A mixer grinder, a OTG, whatever people seek out. There are many things that people may seek out, but they don't know where to look for it. For example, a good lemon squeezer. A very good pizza cutter. Okay. But thanks to quick commerce, we are able to service the customers with these wonderful products also. So life is getting more enriched with all this. And I think as far as talent is concerned, I think they are just growing, helping the brands grow. So one cannot complain.
So any changes, FMCG folks would have had to do because of this quick commerce in terms of talent compensation? Or is that again the market?
As I said, it's too small a dent on anybody's talent profile. Now, if there are a couple of startups who have, one tech guy who joined e-commerce, they will say, my company is shattered because of that. But if you see overall picture, do you think a Levers is at all concerned if maybe 5 or 10 brand managers left or even a mid-scale company like ours, maybe I think out of a team of 30 people that we have in e-com and digital, maybe one person left and joined quick commerce. It's okay. That is a natural churn anyway.
Well, thank you so much, Raviji. This has been wonderful. A lot of nuggets of wisdom for young people in this space. And like I mentioned earlier, you come from a space where it's not easy to build a business, and you've done Bootstrapped and got to this stage. And I really wish luck, going forward. Is there anything you think would be valuable in terms of talent to people who are building today? Would be any final thoughts from you?
So I will give you just one last thing. I have valued loyalty above all else.
Wow.
And I think if you have people who stayed with you, you reward them better. Come what may.
Fantastic.
Because in difficult times, and we have seen at the beginning of the century, I thought, 21st century, life will be so much better. There is peace. I can tell you every 3 years, not 5 years, every 3 years we have seen crisis. The global financial crisis came in this. The 26/11 came in this. The pandemic came. Today, what to say? Okay. And it's loyal people. You come to office every day, you see their faces, and you feel energized that, I'm not alone.
I think that's a great closing thought. I think something people would keep in mind, because these days you can't build anything you can get started quickly, you can show some prototypes quickly, but building businesses and getting them to a profitable state is taking longer and longer. So loyalty is a great anchor in that sense. Again, thank you so much, Ravi, for being here and sharing your thoughts. Good luck for everything going forward. We'll keep a keen eye. And like I said, I'm a consumer, and I hope to be a shareholder the moment you list as well.
Thank you so much, Satish. What a pleasure. Thank you for your patience in listening to my replies, and all the best for your business model and your company. Thank you.